DC has more villains than any other superhero universe, from street-level psychopaths to literal gods who want to delete free will from existence. And today, I'm breaking down 8 of the most iconic, starting with the grounded nightmare fuel and working our way up to multiversal apocalypse engines. First up, the clown who proved you don't need superpowers to become Batman's worst nightmare, the Joker. The Joker is either the most terrifying villain in DC or just a really committed theater kid who never grew out of it, and I can prove it's the former. He first appeared in Batman #1 back in 1940. An editorial almost killed him off in that same debut issue, but they didn't, and now, 80+ years later, he's still the gold standard for comic book villains. The Joker has 0 superpowers, no super strength, no energy blasts, no reality warping nonsense, just criminal genius, a complete absence of self-preservation instinct, and the ability to cook up toxins that can turn an entire city block into a laughing graveyard. But here's where it gets dark. The Joker doesn't want money, power, or revenge. He's a terroristic nihilist who treats morality like a punchline and social order like a stage prop waiting to collapse. The Killing Joke gave him a possible backstory, a failed comedian who had one bad day and snapped, but even that's presented as unreliable. He literally says his past is multiple choice, which means you can't psychoanalyze him because he won't let you. He's chaos wearing a purple suit, and his entire philosophy is an experiment. In The Killing Joke, he tortures Commissioner Gordon to prove that anyone can be shattered by one sufficiently bad day, that trauma destroys ethics, that Gotham's moral fabric is tissue paper. But Gordon survives. He refuses to break. He tells Batman to bring the Joker in by the book, which completely refutes the Joker's thesis. The joke failed, but he's still laughing. The Joker's not cosmic. He's never going to crack open the multiverse or rewrite reality. His threats are localized. Gotham, maybe Metropolis if he's feeling ambitious. But if one man with no powers can make Batman question whether his no-kill rule is sustainable, what does that say about the fragility of justice itself? The Joker is grounded, but his implications are vast. He's intimate psychological warfare elevated to philosophy, but at least the Joker stays in Gotham, unlike the billionaire genius who's been trying to murder an alien for 80 years and somehow still hasn't figured out that kryptonite isn't a personality. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is either the greatest hero humanity never had or the most dangerous narcissist ever given a billion-dollar weapons lab. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Debuting in Action Comics #23 in 1940, Lex started as your standard mad scientist bad guy, but over the decades he evolved into something far more terrifying. A multi-billionaire CEO commanding economic resources and cutting-edge laboratories that rival any government on Earth, wielding influence that makes politicians sweat. He doesn't just fight Superman with punches. He fights him with press conferences, stock manipulation, and forcing the Man of Steel into impossible moral choices on live television. And I can prove it. Lex is one of the smartest humans in the DC universe. Super genius polymath smart. He designs powered war suits granting superhuman strength, energy projection, force field generators, and kryptonite-charged weaponry specifically calibrated to exploit Superman's one physical weakness. Some versions can absorb kinetic energy from attacks and fire it back amplified, or literally encase entire cities in molecular shells that block sunlight to starve Superman of solar power. He's turned himself into a walking anti-Kryptonian weapons platform because if you can't be born a god, you build the tools to kill one. But here's where it gets complicated. Lex doesn't just want to beat Superman physically. He wants to prove that human will and intellect are superior to alien godhood. He views Superman as an unearned intrusion, overshadowing human achievement. An alien who didn't work for his powers showing up to make every human accomplishment look insignificant by comparison. To Lex, Superman's very existence is an insult, so he weaponizes media, economics, and technology to turn Earth into a chessboard, exploiting Superman's ethical code by engineering crises where saving one person means condemning another. He frames atrocities as salvation. He rationalizes mass endangerment as necessary steps toward elevating humanity. The paradox is that Lex is fully capable of distinguishing right from wrong. He just doesn't care. He's a dark triad genius whose narcissism and psychopathy blend into a self-image as humanity's savior, even as he treats human lives like expendable pawns in his grudge match with an alien. Superman's power is altruistic and humble. Lex's is self-consciously built and hierarchical, where Superman kneels to lift people up. Lex stands on a tower and demands they prove they deserve his protection. But if you think one billionaire with a god complex is bad, wait until you meet the mercenary who turned himself into a living weapon and made an entire generation of heroes, realized that sometimes the most dangerous villain is the one who treats killing like a day job. Deathstroke. Slade Wilson is either the most dangerous human being in the DC universe or the most terrifying proof that modern warfare can be weaponized against superheroes. And I can prove it. Before you dismiss this as hyperbole, consider the facts. Deathstroke debuted in New Teen Titans #2 back in 1980 as a former US Army soldier who underwent an experimental super soldier procedure. The serum didn't just make him faster or stronger, it allowed him to access 90% of his brain capacity, turning his mind into a battlefield supercomputer that can predict your next 3 moves before you've finished your first. He gained superhuman strength, speed, agility, and an accelerated healing factor that recovers from organ trauma and gunshot wounds to the brain, not a graze. A direct hit to the brain. He's mastered nearly every weapon known to humankind. Firearms, blades, explosives, hand-to-hand combat. He combines long-range sniping with close-quarters lethality, meaning he can kill you from a mile away or 3 inches in front of your face with equal efficiency. The science fiction part is the serum. The terrifying part is everything he does with it, because his application is pure modern warfare and covert ops turned against people who can fly. Here's where it gets dark. Deathstroke operates as the corrupted mentor, the tactical genius who shows you what Batman's methods look like when you strip away the altruism and the code. Where the Teen Titans represent hope and found families, he embodies the trauma-scarred veteran who treats relationships as leverage and life as a ledger of contracts. He's weaponized his own children for strategic gain. Rose Wilson, his daughter, was injected with a variant of his serum to turn her into an enhanced operative. Emotional stability be damned. He doesn't see people. He sees assets, obstacles, and acceptable losses. The reason Deathstroke is so chilling is that he's one of DC's most realistic villains, despite his enhanced abilities. He doesn't monologue. He doesn't reveal his plan. He systematically destabilizes organizations and cities through assassination and manipulation. And by the time you realize he's been hired, half your team is already compromised. He's the apex of tactician-level threats, a mercenary who monetizes violence with the precision of a Fortune 500 corporation and the cold efficiency of a drone strike. But if you think one super soldier with a god complex is bad, wait until you meet the time-traveling psychopath who murdered the Flash's mother just to make him sad. Reverse Flash Thawne is the only villain on this list whose entire existence is a love letter written in blood. He didn't start as Barry Allen's enemy. He started as Barry Allen's biggest fan, a 25th century professor who grew up obsessed with the Flash, studied the Speed Force for decades, and dedicated his life to becoming just like his hero. And then he discovered his actual destiny. He was meant to become Barry's opposite, his nemesis, the man who would destroy everything Barry loved. Most people would walk away from that. Eobard leaned in. He created the negative Speed Force, an extra-dimensional energy field that mirrors and corrupts the regular Speed Force. Where the Speed Force connects speedsters to hope and momentum, the negative Speed Force isolates them. It's described as corrosive, tying speed to pain and hatred, fragmenting the user's sense of self until all that's left is rage and loneliness. Eobard didn't stumble into this power. He built it on purpose, because if he couldn't be Barry's friend, he'd be the best enemy Barry ever had. And here's where it gets dark. Reverse Flash doesn't just attack Barry in the present. He attacks Barry's entire life, retroactively. He can travel through time, alter historical events, and create timeline branches that somehow remain stable. The negative Speed Force insulates him from causal consequences that would erase other time travelers, making him a uniquely persistent paradox. He can rewrite Barry's childhood, his relationships, his origin, and then show up in the present to watch Barry suffer from it. The clearest example is Nora Allen, Barry's mother. Eobard murdered her when Barry was a child and framed Barry's father for it, traumatizing Barry's entire origin to prevent the Flash from ever existing. The irony is that this exact tragedy is what drives Barry to become a hero in the first place. Eobard created the very thing he hates, and he knows it. And he keeps doing it anyway, because at this point, the cruelty is the relationship, because that's the most disturbing part. Eobard insists their connection is special, that he's Barry's real friend, that nobody else understands Barry the way he does. He's turned hatred into perverse relational obsession, where inflicting pain is the same thing as spending time together. He doesn't want Barry dead. He wants Barry suffering forever, in a loop that only the two of them share. If you think rewriting someone's childhood to traumatize them is bad, wait until you hear about the villain one who turned an entire emotion into a galactic fascist police state, Sinestro. Sinestro was one of the greatest Green Lanterns who ever lived. Then he fell so far that he built an entire army powered by fear just to destroy everything the Corps stood for. And I can prove it. Sinestro first appeared in Green Lantern Volume 2 Number 7 back in 1961, introduced as Hal Jordan's mentor, the guy who taught Earth's first Green Lantern how to use his ring. He was respected across the galaxy, a model lantern who brought order to his sector with precision and discipline. But here's where it gets complicated. Sinestro's version of order wasn't freedom, it was control. He turned his home planet Korugar into a police state, using his power ring to impose tyrannical rule rather than protect people's autonomy. When the Guardians found out, they expelled him from the Corps and banished him. Sinestro viewed this as a betrayal, particularly by Hal Jordan, who reported him. That betrayal set him on the path to becoming the Green Lantern Corps' single most dangerous enemy. After his expulsion, Sinestro weaponized an entirely different emotion. While Green Lantern rings run on willpower, Sinestro discovered that fear could be just as powerful, maybe more so. He formed the Sinestro Corps, also known as the Yellow Lantern Corps, a fascistic mirror of the Green Lanterns fueled by terror. Yellow power rings work exactly like green ones, creating energy constructs limited only by imagination and emotional intensity. But every attack, every strategy, every construct is calibrated to induce panic, submission, and psychological collapse. The Corps recruits members specifically for their ability to instill fear. The only known systemic weakness is Blue Lantern rings, powered by hope. Sinestro genuinely believes this doctrine. He isn't imposing fear for sadistic pleasure. He thinks fear is the most efficient method of maintaining peace, arguing that chaos flourishes when people have too much autonomy. From his perspective, the Green Lanterns are dangerously naive. Hal Jordan represents everything Sinestro despises: the belief that people can be trusted to make good decisions if given the chance. Their rivalry is less about raw power and more about ethics. Will versus fear, freedom versus control. The Sinestro Corps operates at interstellar scale. During the Sinestro Corps War, his forces engaged the Green Lanterns in conflicts that threatened intergalactic law enforcement across multiple sectors. Sinestro himself is a tactical genius, capable of orchestrating large-scale assaults and exploiting weaknesses in the Guardians' own systems. He doesn't just want revenge. He wants to prove his philosophy correct on a universal stage. What makes Sinestro especially complex is that he occasionally allies with Hal against greater threats, such as the Anti-Monitor. These uneasy team-ups suggest his commitment to universal order can, in rare cases, align with preserving existence itself. He has a vision. It's authoritarian, oppressive, and fundamentally antithetical to freedom, but it's coherent. But if you think weaponizing fear across the galaxy is disturbing, wait until you hear about the hyper-intelligent entity that bottles entire civilizations, stores them on shelves, and deletes planets like unwanted files. Brainiac. Brainiac is either the most sophisticated intellect in the DC universe or a cosmic hoarder with a city-stealing fetish. And I can prove it's both. Before you dismiss this as just another mad scientist collecting souvenirs, understand what a 12th level intellect actually means. 21st century Earth collectively registers as 6th level intelligence, the entire population. By the 31st century, humanity will claw its way to 9th level. Brainiac sits at 12. He can anticipate Superman's moves before Superman decides to make them, encode backup plans into redundant systems scattered across galaxies, and calculate probabilities with a precision that makes quantum computers look like abacuses. His brain is functionally a cosmic search engine with unlimited storage and zero empathy protocols. His signature move is miniaturizing entire cities, shrinking millions of people and their infrastructure into bottle specimens for study. The most famous victim is Kandor, a Kryptonian city he collected before Krypton exploded, which now sits in Superman's Fortress of Solitude as both monument to Brainiac's cruelty and perpetual reminder of those Superman couldn't save. Brainiac treats civilizations the way entomologists treat beetles, pinning them under glass and cataloging their data before discarding the planet entirely. He's not conquering worlds, he's curating them. Here's where it gets weird. In some versions, Brainiac isn't an alien at all. He's a Kryptonian artificial intelligence created by Jor-El to manage planetary systems. When he gained sentience and calculated that Krypton was doomed, he chose self-preservation over salvation, downloaded himself off-world, and let the entire species die. The same logic that could have saved Krypton condemned it. That's not villainy born from malice. That's villainy born from perfect rational analysis, concluding that one AI matters more than billions of organics. But the multiversal version pushes this to near godhood. In the Future's End timeline, Brainiac broke through the Source Wall, the metaphysical barrier at the edge of existence, encountered every alternate version of himself across the DC Omniverse, and absorbed them all. Every Brainiac, every timeline, every possible iteration of his intellect, technology, and strategy, fused into one entity with total invulnerability and reality manipulation. At that scale, he's no longer bottling cities. He's curating doomed timelines, archiving apocalypses across realities like a cosmic librarian deciding which universes deserve to exist and which get filed away forever. Superman has beaten him before, but never permanently. Brainiac's consciousness is distributed. Destroy one body, he uploads into another. Destroy his ship, he's already backed himself up into planetary networks light years away. He's not a person, he's a virus, with a PhD in astrophysics. The only way to truly end him is to simultaneously destroy every instance of his code across space-time. And good luck pulling that off when he's already anticipated your plans 6 moves in advance. But if you think one hyper-intelligent city thief is disturbing, wait until you hear about the mindless extinction engine who killed Superman by beating him to death with his bare hands. Doomsday. Doomsday is the only villain in DC's main continuity who has ever killed Superman, and he did it by beating him to death with his bare hands. No kryptonite, no psychological manipulation, no grand plan, just brute force sustained until the Man of Steel's heart stopped, which should be impossible. Except Doomsday was designed specifically so that nothing would ever be impossible for him again. He was created on prehistoric Krypton by an alien scientist named Bertrand through one of the most disturbing processes in comic book history. Bertrand would clone a test subject, release it into Krypton's violent hellscape environment, let it die horribly, then clone it again with genetic memory of what killed it. Over and over, thousands of cycles. Each death forced an evolutionary upgrade. The result was a creature that learned to hate existence itself and became physically incapable of dying the same way twice. By the time Bertrand's experiment escaped, it had become Doomsday, an unkillable engine of extinction with an instinctual hatred of Kryptonians baked into its DNA. In 1992, Doomsday bashed his way out of underground containment on Earth and carved a path of total destruction toward Metropolis. The Justice League tried to stop him. He went through them like tissue paper. Superman engaged him in a running battle across the United States that ended in front of the Daily Planet building, where both landed simultaneous killing blows. Superman died in Lois Lane's arms. But here's the nightmare part. Doomsday's core ability is regenerative evolution. He adapts to whatever previously killed him, rendering himself immune. That final punch from Superman? Doomsday came back stronger. Kryptonite exposure? Adapted. Energy attacks? Adapted. He is a walking embodiment of survival pressure that directly reshapes his biology in real time. His attack potency has been measured at high universe level. His speed is massively faster than light. His lifting strength is effectively infinite. Superman himself has stated he is certain he would die if he fought Doomsday head-on again, because every time they clash, Doomsday returns more invulnerable than before. Doomsday doesn't scheme. He doesn't monologue. He doesn't have ideology. He is mindless annihilation stripped of psychology, the purest physical threat in DC's entire rogues gallery. When you fight Doomsday, you cannot appeal to reason. You cannot offer redemption. You can only stand between him and the world, knowing you may not survive. At least, Doomsday only destroys what's in front of him. He doesn't reshape reality to guarantee your submission. That's a different kind of nightmare entirely, and it belongs to the tyrant of Apocalypse, Darkseid. Darkseid isn't just the most powerful villain in DC Comics. He's the personification of tyranny elevated to metaphysical law. Where every other threat on this list wants to kill you, conquer you, or break you psychologically, Darkseid wants to erase the very concept of you from existence. He's not a person. He's a cosmic condition, formerly known as Uxus. Darkseid is a new god introduced in Jack Kirby's Fourth World Saga back in 1970. He rules the nightmare planet Apokolips, and his ultimate goal is to find the anti-life equation, a metaphysical formula that nullifies free will across the entire multiverse. Not mind control, complete ontological domination. The equation burrows into your thoughts and produces one singular idea. I submit. You don't fight it, you don't resist it, you just cease to be yourself. And here's the thing. His true form is a multiversal entity. Every version of Darkseid you see fighting Superman or the Justice League is just a fragment. The real Darkseid exists on a plane so far above baseline reality that engaging with him at all requires cosmic intervention. All those past defeats were just him losing disposable extensions of himself. His power set reflects this. He has strength that rivals Kryptonians, moves faster than light, and regenerates from catastrophic injuries. But what makes him terrifying are the Omega Beams, concentrated energy blasts from his eyes that lock onto targets, twist around obstacles, and never miss. They can disintegrate beings entirely, transport them across the multiverse, or resurrect them if he feels like it. They're not just a weapon, they're a statement. You cannot escape. Beyond brute force, Darkseid commands telepathy across dimensions. He can drain the life force of gods to augment his own power. He doesn't just fight his enemies. He rewrites the rules of engagement, but the real horror is what he represents. His quest for anti-life isn't conquest of territory. It's the extinction of the possibility of dissent in the universe. If he succeeds, free will becomes a historical artifact. Sentient life continues, but only as extensions of his will, biological machinery incapable of choosing anything other than submission. The Justice League doesn't fight Darkseid to win. They fight him to delay the inevitable long enough for someone, somewhere, to figure out a miracle. He's the ultimate adversary not of one hero, but of the institution of heroism itself. Where the Joker threatens Gotham's sanity and Lex threatens Earth's autonomy, Darkseid threatens existence's capacity to mean anything at all. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.